Joseph, you
Morning.
are in Malta, aren't you?
I am in Malta at the moment, absolutely.
So Joseph Calleja, the amazing tenor, Maltese tenor, proud Maltese tenor. And have you been in Malta during most of COVID time? Have you been able to work since the virus started spreading all over the world?
I've got to Malta on the 9th and they closed the airport a few days later. So I was in a way lucky to be got home. No, not really. I was for a concert in Munich. I have some work coming up now in Malta and then Berlin, but it's very quiet till about the beginning of next year, till December, January, end of this year, beginning of next year.
Right.
So that's what that's what I'm sort of banking on, that eventually a vaccine is found and or we learn to live with this thing a little bit better.
Right. But living with this thing is going to be possible in some industry. It's going to be very difficult in our industry, isn't it? I mean, because especially in the US, you can't survive financially if you have houses where you have only a quarter of the house full in terms of box office and so on. So I'm like you, banking on that vaccine as soon as possible.
But it's interesting you say that though, because now I'm sure you've read it, recent research by Berlin epidemiologists and also scientists, but also scientists in the UK, are now finding that being in an opera house or in a theater, in a normal performance, when people are sitting down, not moving, when you have an opera performance or musical, etc., you're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not moving, you can have your mask on. And they actually found that the risk of virus spread is extremely low. And in Berlin, the epidemiologists, they actually suggested officially to the government that theaters should be allowed to work at full capacity. So there's no reason in the US for this to happen as well. And more than that, I mean, what is more risky? Being on a plane, traveling for tourism, with
drunk in a bar,
with all respect, going to a bar, I mean, opera, and this frustrates me a lot. And of course, I'm gonna get some flack from what I call them internet keyboard warriors. But at the end of the day, going to the theater, there's absolutely no scientific evidence that it can actually spread the virus more than any other normal activity. On the contrary, I think it is one of the safest forms of mass entertainment that you could do, because
if you have mass groups, it's probably safer than most of other ways of being together. And the pit, for instance, you can actually social distance between, quote, most of the musicians in the pit if you choose the right repertoire. And most theaters have the larger pit. So for instance, in Dallas, you take, 2 rows away, and then you have an immense pit. And if you have an orchestra of 60 musicians in there, they can all be at a distance of 1 meter or 6 feet, at least. On the other hand, we need to be humble too. We just, there is no real solid science yet. There are a few studies that you're quoting, and I think, unfortunately, as we both know, all those things, they get tinted ideologically, and people project a lot of their subjectivity or their opinions on what's happening. I would say companies have a duty of caution too. And that's where you need to be daring, but you need to be cautious too. And that balance is very hard. It's very hard to find. Financially, as we were saying earlier, it's much harder on US companies who really depend not only on the box office, but they rely on private funding and corporate funding, and these resources are not as high as they used to be. So the safest bet is the vaccine, probably, and just overcoming this. And we are all navigating this very, very carefully, and it's more painful for other people. So you are in Malta. Have you been in Malta? You live in Malta. So
yes.
And is that a good place as a base when you are an international tenor and you have to go to New York, you have to go to Japan, you have to go to Milano? I mean, is it the best choice in terms of a frequent flyer?
Yes and no, in the sense, you always have to take an extra plane sometimes, but the beauty of it, the beauty of the island makes it worth it. It's
Right.
not that more difficult. It's not that that's more of a hassle. So at the end of the day,
Right.
I find it perfect. When I come
Right.
here, I recharge. It's great climate, great food, the great people. So I'm really like.
So for the people who are watching us and who are not familiar with Malta, I mean, in Europe, people know Malta, but Malta is a beautiful island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. It is part, correct me if I'm wrong, of the European Union.
Yes.
But you are also under the king or the Queen authority, aren't you? You're part of the
Commonwealth. We're not. Yeah, we're part of the Commonwealth. Yes.
You're part of the Commonwealth. Yes, but you're a republic.
Yes.
You're a republic.
But we're not. We're a republic. We're not. The Queen is not
the head of
the state.
We
have the president for that.
Okay, and you, I think you are. Every time we work together, you talk with passion about Malta. So can you tell us a little about, you were born in Malta, your Maltese origins, and how you came to be a musician, a singer, a tenor?
I was born in Malta, pretty much in a normal middle class, upper middle class family. We had business, but I always wanted to sing. I had a voice. Sang in church choirs, school choirs, rock bands later on. Then I discovered Mario Lanza, started studying singing, and the rest is what happened eventually in my career. Being Maltese, Malta is a potpourri of Mediterranean cultures. DNA wise, I'm such a mix that my rescue dog has better breeding than me, because I have Portuguese, Italian, Greek, Spanish, Sicilian blood all mixed, some Lebanese, all over. So yeah, Malta is a very particular and special place.
But so you were raised in English or in Italian? What's the main language?
I was raised to start with in 3 languages: Italian, Maltese, and English. Maltese first, and with English and Italian.
And
very
Maltese,
close.
is it Indo-European language, or what is it? Is it close to more? Is there some part of Arabic? I mean, what's the roots?
Maltese is a Semitic language. It is a cousin to Arabic, a cousin to Hebrew, with 60% about vocabulary from the Italian.
Right.
Vocabulary. It's written in the Roman alphabet, so it's the oldest Semitic language in the world that's written in the Roman alphabet, and it's essentially an old classical Arabic dialect, because it's very close to classical Arabic. At least that's what my friends from Qatar and Dubai and Lebanon say. And it has a big Jewish influence as well, because after all, there's a lot of Jewish blood in Malta, and it's unique in that way, because and it's spoken by predominantly European / Mediterranean people.
Right.
Look at me. I'm not typical Maltese. I'm 6'2". I'm blonde. I have blue eyes. Typical Maltese usually are originally was like shorter men, very olive skin, and blue eyes because of all the mix. But now Malta's so mixed. There's so many different blood and everything that there is no more. I think a really typical Maltese man or
Right.
woman.
Right. So and the main religion, and it was the official religion, I suppose, for many years, is Catholicism. So you were probably raised Catholic, and you were acquainted to music by singing at church in the chorus, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
was raised.
So can you elaborate a little on this? What was the past that all of a sudden made you say, "Wow, this is interesting. I like this, and I want to make this my profession"?
I mean, originally I sang everything. I sang nursery rhymes. I sang the cartoon, musical. When the cartoon comes on, there's a music, then when I was in church, when you sort of hear when the Gregorian chant, when there's a priest saying, he sings the Latin, in nomine Dei Christi, amen, and there was this magical kind of thing, the smell of the incense, the energy of all the people there, and then the church choir when I was an altar boy, of course, and then I discovered, of course, rock and heavy metal and Queen and Bing Crosby and Elvis and Dean Martin and
so heavy metal. Did you sing heavy metal? I mean, did you make a difference between Gregorian chant and?
I sang. I always sang everything, which helped me a lot then by doing these pop concerts crossover concerts with people like Michael Bolton, Dionne Warwick,
right.
Zucchero, etc. But the turning point was when I saw the movie Mario Lanza, The Great Caruso of Mario Lanza, and that was a massive turning point, because I said this is just great. I started imitating him immediately. I could sing immediately like him with the voice of a 13, 14-year-old. And then I eventually got where I am today.
Right. And so then you it takes years to work on the voice, to mature the voice. And probably your first intuition on the position of the voice were correct, but then you have to find the right people. So you cannot learn from Mario Lanza only by listening again and again his tape. So did you have people that you really trusted right away? Did you have a long evolution for that, or it felt very natural and you knew right away that this was your voice?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
that's the door. Of course, Mario Lanza was the first one. I was 13 or 14 years of age. Then, of course, I discovered Luciano Pavarotti I knew already, and then Placido, and then Jose. And then with my teacher, I listened to all the great tenors of the past. I discovered my teacher thanks to my piano teacher at the age of 15, and I sang for him. He was trained by Ricci and Paoletti, the collaborators of Gilli. He knew Tito Schipa very well and even worked with him. He was friends with Corelli. He won, in fact, Spoleto with him back in the 50s. He sang with Maria Callas, so I had a very old school formation of the way to learn voice. So I was very lucky with that.
Right, and you then the choice of repertoire, for instance. Where you started with your voice is a lyric voice with an incredible, a very unique sound, very identified sound right away. Very rich sound. but you started with lighter roles, didn't you? So how did you navigate that? How did you understand, okay, this is the right role for me now, and maybe in 5 years I want to sing this or that?
Of course, I started like a light lyric. I did Rossini, I did Bellini, Donizetti, etc., etc. And then as the years, like a great wine, if you have a great voice, same thing with wine, if you have a great, you have the great terroir, you have the great grape, you have the great conditions, the good climatic conditions. Same with the voice. If you take care of it, technique-wise and everything, you're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna have great vintages, less great vintages, and bad vintages, and vintages where you do nothing at all. And the voice is exactly the same thing with the right maturation, with the right technique. You can definitely mature, and let the voice itself show you the way it wants to go.
Right. And so where is the voice now? What are the roles you really think, this is the right year to drink this role?
This role, yeah.
Yes. Right
now I'm a full lyric with, I think, potential eventually to go into lyrical spinto roles. This COVID period really allowed for a big rest. So I did, of course, I never stopped singing, but I will now eventually soon need to really get into the much more, the routine of singing when it's just about singing at the end of the day. But it's pretty much, I think, full lyric with potential soon, I think, rather than later, into the slowly but surely in some spinto repertoire.
Right. So what is amazing to me is that we have worked over the years, and I think we did a concert a few months ago where you sung very different repertoire. You also sung some crossover repertoire. And what's stunning to me is that your voice has evolved, is larger. The color is not necessarily, you have a naturally very dense with a lot of harmonics color, but the top is still there. And the top is still incredibly secure and full. At least that's the impression, I'm sure it's work, but it gives that impression. So it seems to me that there is no limit to that development in a way. So the full lyric is the right thing, but you have sung Tosca now for many years, correct?
Yeah, not many years, but a few. Yes, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah.
But we did a Romeo together. You were singing Romeo and Tosca, in the same calendar year, which is
first Romeo, then Tosca. Yeah.
Yeah, and Romeo, normally it's for a lighter voice. So what are the largest lyric roles? I'm pushing you a little there, where you would like to go to. Have you done Pagliacci? Have you started doing this? Or
Pagliacci, no. That I would still wait a little bit few, because there's a lot of verismo, declamato in Pagliacci. I could do it. I have not done it, but that's something that I would wait a few more seasons probably to do. Okay. But things like Ballo Masca you just mentioned, things like Carmen, of course. Even an opera like Aida. Aida is can be done by a spinto, can be done by a full lyric very successfully. Remember, Verdi wrote the B flat of Celeste Aida in triple or 4 pianos. I try to do a diminuendo, especially if I'm in good voice. Very difficult, but not impossible. And, things even like Trovatore. Verdi had said, if I'm not mistaken, Rigoletto, Traviata, and the Trovatore, same type of voice in his letters. So things like that as well. Things like Manon of Massenet, I would love to do it. What he said about Romeo, yes, Romeo is light in some instances, but then Romeo has as well the big, like au jour de des horreurs de l'arme. It's very, there are some moments which are big and which you need, and the orchestration is thick as well. Same thing with Faust. Faust, you
Right.
do need
Oh, yes.
a lyric voice or a full lyric to really go through that orchestra, in my opinion. Then of
No,
course.
absolutely, absolutely. But
So
you need. It's like Carmen. You need to be able to switch from that
yeah,
certain lyric likeness with filati, the
yeah,
voice growing
yeah,
and going back, and moments that are really very large, and you have four horns and three trombones.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
fitting the voice. But your voice naturally also has so many harmonics that it never feels
Thank
like
you.
you have to push. It's more about, can the voice sustain this tension for a long time? But
For a long time.
I've been incredibly impressed with the development of your voice when you choose roles, and I think you kind of partially answer this, and you think this is a right role for me. This is mostly vocally. Are you also interested in a role because of the dramatic aspect of the role? How much is that part of your choices?
I mean, absolutely. A role like, for example, Hoffmann, which is
Right.
so complicated psychologically, the Tales of Hoffmann of Offenbach, I'm referring to, of course. A role like Tosca, which is so real, it's
Intense.
so intense. It's so, it feels so real and all that. And when people tell me opera is boring, I told them, listen to a Luciano alle Stelle. What he's singing there about
Yes.
is about sex. He's reminiscing how she felt, how she smelled, how what they did. Because of course, with Italian censors during the time, you couldn't be more explicit. But it's
Right.
Luciano alle Stelle is that, and he closes the line, which and non ho mai amato così tanto la vita, which means I never loved life so much. It's such a strong phrase. So opera ultimately is about the human being, the human essence, the human emotions. And to answer your question, absolutely, I like to play interesting roles.
Right, and so that can be part of your choice of repertoire. How do you prepare a role? I mean, if you are in Valletta, for instance, I guess you have a coach there, you have someone to work with, or you work on your own. You studied piano too. So what's your process to learn a new part?
I look at the score. Sometimes people fly in from abroad, pianists and repetiteurs, like my friends Vincenzo Scalera, James Pearson. James Pearson, so far is the only summer he hasn't been here from because of COVID, because things are changed all then. But Jim has been coming here, I think, for way more than 10 years.
Right.
Every summer for 2-3 weeks, and we work 3-4 times, sometimes 5 times a week, and we go through the roles. You gotta live with the score a little bit, sing it many times. The more you sing it, the more it's in your throat, and the more you're comfortable with it. Then there are roles that really need to work hard for them to sit in your voice. Then there are roles that just sit. I remember I studied Simon Boccanegra in 7 days.
Right.
My schedule was hell. I don't suggest this to the younger singers out there, but I had done it in 7 days. I turned up with Tony Papano and Covent Garden, and with Placido, who was singing Boccanegra, and I just sounded like I was singing it for for 4 years. So there's that. Who knows why? Because there's probably no scientific explanation or medical explanation why this is. But
well, maybe in another life you sound.
It's the brain.
Yeah.
No, or maybe I was a doge in ancient Venice. You never know.
Well, and you went to Malta after you got into trouble. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and we sailed with from Venice to
exactly. That's an easy one. Talking of languages, so you speak, we speak actually French together. French. You are fluent in French. You sing beautifully French language because you have this natural position for that, which is not easy. Have you sung ever in German?
I've sung songs and arias in German. I'm still studying the language. I'm improving, and I have plans to sing German repertoire. The only thing is that I'd like to be more fluent in German eventually.
But and so far in your exploration of the German repertoire, does that change your vocal position? How do you navigate that?
Oh, no, no, no. I don't. I changed my interpretation. Never the vocal position. The vocal position, if you look at all the greatest tenors, Gili, who sang lots of German repertoire, all the people who've done, you know, different repertoire, you never change your vocal position, because that's you change the colors, you change the interpretation, not the vocal. The vocal cords have to do exactly the same thing. Otherwise, you'll use your head and your voice eventually. So that's
Right.
the trick. The trick is to give the impression that you're changing your vocal position, but whilst retaining your own identity and your vocal identity.
And so you just go with the color of the language, but you don't change the technique, and then you just stay. So basically, it's mostly an Italian technique that's at the base of your singing, wouldn't you say? I mean, singing on the foils.
I'm gonna say something, maybe it's a bit controversial, but I don't
Please
think there's
do.
I don't think there is more than one singing technique. I think the singing technique is one, but there are different ways to explain it. And I think that's because when you see the great singers, and I've done years with my teacher, watching watching, you know, and videos and listen to recordings of so many great singers, you know, male, female, baritone, sopranos, tenors, whatever. They all sing the same. There are sometimes slight modifications in the jaw, how much you open the jaw, how much, but that's probably more due to an anatomical difference rather than technique difference. It's all singing on the breath, and I strongly believe that the singing technique is one, but there are several ways of how to get that through,
right,
into the brain, to the mind of the singer.
Are you teaching yourself? Have you ever given master classes at least?
I have done a few master classes. Teaching is a big commitment. So I will continue doing master classes, but to take responsibility of teaching, not yet. I'm too young still for that. And I would like to do that towards the end of my career, or at the end of my career, rather than doing it now where I cannot give my potential students the attention and the care they deserve.
Right, but did you enjoy the master classes? Is this something?
Oh yeah, it's great. I love working with young singers. They're great.
Right.
You know, I mean, here's the thing. I'm still in my early 40s, so usually master classes are between 27, 28 till 35, 36. So there's not this big age gap between us. So it's cool. It's you know, because I started singing very, very early. I was 19 years of age when I had my debut.
Right.
In Macbeth and Macduff, and so now everybody thinks that I'm 10 years older, but I'm actually still in my early 40s. So
right.
it's cool to sing almost with people who are not that much far away from my age.
Right. You have 2 children. Are they musicians?
Clara just left to be in a music school in Trink Park in the UK.
Yes.
And she writes music, pop music, commercial, like sort of, and she's very good. She's 16. Let's see what happens there, but she has all the talent if she wants to.
Does she ask you to sing her music sometime, or that's out of?
Some of it is so good I sing it even without noticing, which is when you know that you're on to
wow,
something.
yeah, it's just
when people,
in your brain, yeah.
So and when she sang in a concert when she was 14, she sang in my concert just one piece, and she plays the piano, she writes both the music and the lyrics, and people were asking me, who's that song of? Is it Tori Amos? Is it Alicia Keys? I said, no, that's hers. Right. And you know, it's not copied, it's not plagiarized, it's hers. And you know, as a father, I'm the one who criticizes her most, because I love her. When you love, of course, it's constructive, but when you love, you criticize. Right. It's easy to say everything is great when it isn't. It's difficult sometimes to give the feedback to someone.
But it's a tough career. I mean, you are very lucky because you were given a gift, and then you worked to really do the most you could with that gift. But people don't understand how very few people can make not even a great career like yours, but just a living out of music. And so, and she was scared to encourage her to do more, you know, writing and singing. And at one point, you know, you need to make a living.
Um, Absolutely. And trust me, as a dad, that's the first thing that went through my head. But she is that good,
Okay.
that if she works hard, if she overworks everyone,
Mhm.
and if she really puts there, she can
Mhm.
definitely make it. Because it's funny. I hope she doesn't see this, because I never tell her these compliments to her
Right.
face. But she really has the gift of writing something beautiful with poignant words, and which something which is very tuneful, something you can remember after the
Right.
first after you hear it for the first time, and that's extraordinary. Few people have that gift
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
and she has done it about 8 to 9 songs already, and she's still 16, so that's all goes well. Is success guaranteed? No, but she has enough talent, let's put it this way, for me to encourage her to give it a shot. I would not be encouraging her if I thought that she would not be
Uh,
good in it, because um, just because you want something, it doesn't mean that you should be doing it. You should be doing it if you have the talent and if you are naturally predisposed to it, to do
right.
it well.
And probably, you know, that's when I have young musician, young artists who ask me for an advice, I said, you know what? My advice is it's a very difficult career. Um, so many people have a right to be in the first row, and very few people are going to be. So I tell you, if you have another talent, you have to work on that other talent too. You have to develop that other profession. But in the end, what I say should not matter. If you really are passionate about this, if you really feel that's where your calling is, then you are
Yeah.
going to have it. And but if you don't have that absolute certainty that life is not worth living without doing this, forget it. Then be a
Yeah.
doctor, be a lawyer, or do any kind of other business. Last time I saw you, you were talking also, you have a foundation, I believe, for children in Malta.
Yes, I do.
Is it
Very.
still is it still alive? Can you
Oh,
talk a little about
Oh
this?
yeah, absolutely. We raised more than 1.1 million euros now in about 4, 5, 6 years. Very
Mm-hmm.
proud of it, because we're
Mm-hmm.
helping about 75 scholars, more than 2,000 um, children from the underprivileged side,
Mm-hmm.
and very proud of that, because we're doing a lot of work. We have people like Charles Buttigieg, who's accepted at the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. Marvik Monreal had internships in Salzburg. She's a mezzo-soprano, very, very, very talented. Now she's in Frankfurt Opera. So soon, thanks to the talent that's coming out from Malta, but all, as well, partially thanks to the foundation, the Bank of Valletta Joseph Calleja Foundation, we're
Mm-hmm.
having people, let's say, more Maltese ambassadors carrying the Maltese flag.
Well, that is quite fascinating. Um, you work equally in Europe and in the US. I mean, you have had a big career in the US. We work together at the Lyric in Chicago. You sing at the Met regularly, but you also sing in Covent Garden. Do you balance yourself between US and Europe on purpose? Do you try to really have as much time here and there? And do you enjoy equally working in both territories?
I try to balance as much as possible. Sometimes your schedule allows it, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes I'm in the US for longer periods, and sometimes I'm in Europe for longer periods. It
Mm-hmm.
really depends from what projects come in.
Right. There is a question I have asked a lot of your colleagues, and I always get different answers. What do you do when you are dealing with a soprano that is not necessarily cooperating, or with a conductor that doesn't understand your needs, or with a stage director that has views on the piece and on the roles that you really do not share? What's your attitude in those situations?
I always, so I've never had, this is going to be my 24th year of career. I've never had I'm trying to think here, but I never had an argument with
Right.
any colleague or any conductor or any. Once with a stage director, we're not gonna mention the name, who after 5 weeks of rehearsals, out of the blue, had the baritone Escamillo to smoke a real cigarette on stage, real one, not a fake one, and blow the smoke in my face from this distance. That wasn't nice, and I let him know that that wasn't nice because it was never discussed, and of course it's something you don't do. Real cigarette smoke while singing a very difficult duet of the Escamillo, Don Jose has no business in blowing it literally from 2 inches from your face.
Right.
And but I never had any other arguments. Never with a soprano. Never with any of my colleagues. I always try to be as respectful as possible. When to the other question, when I don't agree with conductors, I was lucky. I always, if working with you, tell me, listen, Joseph, do it this way, this piano, try it for me. I'm never like, nah, this is the way I do it. I don't care. I'm very, as you know yourself.
You're a very good colleague in the sense that you know what you want and it's very clear, but you are ready to try other things. And if for any reason, when I work with you, I tell you, listen, Joseph, I need your help that bar because I have a problem with the bassoon. You are always going to be there, you know. So you have this change of collaboration that is, but at the same time, you know what your voice needs, and that's actually very, very valuable for a conductor. We actually like that because then it works for us together.
And with the stage director, my job is not to judge the show. My job is to give the stage director, the regisseur, all my energy and focus to try and make his vision work. That's the maximum thing I can do. I cannot do better than that. Of course, I can have personal opinion. For example, the show is shit or the show is great. But I will never make that opinion known because that's not my job. The job of criticizing is the critics, is the audience. They are the ones. I'm not there. Plus, it's very important to notice that I am doing all in my role and I'm not seeing the show from the outside and seeing the whole thing. So what looks bad for me, in some cases, can look good from outside in the auditorium.
Right, that is actually very true. Another question I would like to ask you, and I have asked a lot of your colleagues, and I suppose it's not going to be necessarily an easy answer, but because you know very clearly that you were destined to be a singer, and that was a clear path for you. You would not have been a singer. What kind of profession would you have liked to embrace? Would you like to be a doctor, a teacher, a pilot?
Funny, you had two of them.
Okay.
probably my first would have been a doctor. I love medicine. I love reading about it. I love science. I love probably somebody who diagnoses sicknesses. It's very, very, very exciting. I find it, especially if it's in research. Right. I don't mind being a lawyer. I would probably make a good lawyer. Probably criminal. Yeah, I'm good with words. Pilot, of course, every young kid wants to be a pilot. I don't know, but I mean, it's a hard work to leave the house and being like an opera singer, traveling all the time. But a doctor is today how I'm today. Probably the most thing that I would be interested in.
The closest to. Well, Joseph, it's a good thing, if I might say, you're not a pilot, a doctor, or a lawyer, and because you would have stolen a job from these other people, but we would not have this amazing artist that you are. And I thank you for this time, and I'm so much looking forward to working with you on especially on these roles you are going toward too. So keep doing the great work in Malta, and I hope we see each other very soon.
Maestro, you are a world-class, of course, conductor, as everybody knows, but you're not half bad as a journalist and as an interviewer. This was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever held, and I'm not even joking or being nice. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.
Have a great evening.